Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier, joined as always by my co-host Nick Falato for a bonus episode today. And I want to know, Nick, where were you and what the hell were you thinking when you got the notification on your phone that Micah Parsons was traded?
Yeah, I was standing in my kitchen with my roommate and one of his friends, and they were about to go to a concert. So I'm just hanging out with them, and I look down at my phone, and I just see Adam Schefter, Adam Schefter, Adam Schefter, Adam Schefter. So I'm like, why is my phone blowing up with Adam Schefter tweets at this moment? So I checked it, and I was like, oh my gosh, Ricky Leaks was right.
He's always
Micah
right.
Parsons, he's always right. Micah Parsons is not in the division anymore. This is amazing. And then I saw what the trade value was, and I was like, dude, 2 first-round picks, and Kenny Clark is a good football player, getting a little bit long in the tooth. I think he's 29 years old, but 2 first-round picks that are likely going to be 25 and 26 or around that range with the Green Bay Packers. I was shocked that Jerry Jones allowed this to happen, and I wonder if this is going to be like a massive stain on his legacy, because what is Micah Parsons, 26 years old? He's not even in his prime yet. He's already a top 5 defensive player in the National Football League. And I am just so happy that whether it's Andrew Thomas or James Hudson or whoever is blocking for the New York Giants in week 2, Micah Parsons will not be wearing the Dallas garb.
Yeah, I couldn't believe he actually did it. I thought they would just come to terms on a contract, but ultimately, I don't know exactly how they could have or would have done that. And I always said this from the start, Nick. I said, we talked about this maybe 14 months ago on this show or longer. So there just doesn't seem to be a way for them to financially keep Dak, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons. And they went ahead and signed CeeDee Lamb last offseason to a mega contract, and that was in the books. And the writing was on the wall. Now, I have famously said, Nick, I don't care about the cap, and I don't. But when you play it the way the Cowboys have played it, there is ultimately a breaking point. And that especially if you have your quarterback paid. And that breaking point came finally for this team. They probably could have figured it out. Maybe. I'm just not sure entirely how the cap works. But I know this. What happened was the Giants got rid of one of the best players in the division, straight up, any position, especially outside of quarterback. And I saw Rick Gosselin tweet, Nick, there's 2 things that you should know, book a general manager in the NFL. You never trade a franchise quarterback when he's young. You never trade a franchise pass rusher. He says those are the 1 and 2 most important things. I didn't love how he grouped that. I don't think they're even remotely comparable, quarterback and pass rusher, prime quarterback, pass rusher. I know Jerry Jones would never trade a prime quarterback. He'd make it work no matter what was going on off the field. And I ultimately don't think a pass rusher has that kind of impact, but certainly has up there, right? If we're talking about the next tier after quarterback, assuming quarterback's in its tier of its own, pass rusher or left tackle is your next best bet. And I think pass rusher probably goes above it. What Micah Parsons has been able to do, he's wrecked games, specifically for the Giants.
Absolutely. I mean, I saw a stat where with Micah Parsons on the football field, the Dallas Cowboys, I think, are number 1 in EPA. And without him, they are second to last.
Yeah.
Because there have been a chunk of games where Micah Parsons has missed. That's how bad this Dallas defense is right now. And geez, I know the Giants probably won't do this because it's in division, but I think the Dallas Cowboys could use Chauncey Golston right now, a player that the Giants, look, he hasn't really done too much in training camp because who is on that roster? You're looking at Donovan Ezeraku. You're looking at Dante Fowler. You're looking at players like that on their defense. This might be one of the worst defenses in the league, and now they're in the division just off the fact that Micah Parsons is not there. Every offensive coordinator, watch any Dallas Cowboys game, there was always slide protection towards Micah Parsons, 2, 3 blockers allocated towards Micah Parsons' side. The attention paid to number 11 on the Dallas Cowboys, it was immense, and now that's gone, and the offense is going to be able to do really not whatever they want, because I don't want to devalue some of the other players that the Dallas Cowboys have, but holy crap, man, you just removed the easily the best player on that team, I would say, even more so than CeeDee Lamb. This is a top 5 non-quarterback in the National Football League who is now being paid like that by the Green Bay Packers, because that's the trade, and it's what, a 4-year, $188 million contract. That's a lot of money, I think, with $136 million guaranteed. A lot of money, but that's what the going rate is right now for someone like Micah Parsons, who's only 26 years old.
He is 26 years old. He wrecks games. He can line up. I saw a breakdown from Ben Fennell today, Nick. He can line up in all different. He does line up in all different spots, over the guard, over the center. His A-gap blitz rate, or his A-gap PFF grade, Nick, is 99.9, which is just hilarious. It's essentially just been perfect when blitzing the A-gap, which, by the way, you look at Micah Parsons and you're like, oh, we got Abdul Carter. He may be doing similar things to Micah
Yeah.
Parsons. And Parsons himself has said, Nick, that he believes Carter is a better player than him, which, he might just be saying that to one up his friend. But honestly, dude, I see potential for Carter to be as good as Micah Parsons from what I've seen on his tape, and then even just in the preseason with the Giants. So they talk about, like, I'm watching all these breakdowns on what Parsons is going to do for the Packers defense, where they can line him up, all these different things. And it's like, all right, well, in the back of my head, I'm thinking this is kind of what the Giants can and will do with Abdul Carter, which is very exciting, because the way that this trade's been discussed by NFL media and national reporters, Nick, is just, wow, the Cowboys just gave up a generational player in his prime that's really not repeatable. Like, they have 2 first-round picks, but unless Jordan Love gets hurt, Nick, those are going to be mid, potentially late first-round draft picks, considering what you said earlier, which is the impact Micah has on a defense, right? You said
do
number
you
2
mean
in
Michael,
DVOA.
by the way? Do you mean Michael, by the way?
Why is that what he wants to be called?
Oh yeah, no. Jerry Jones's press guy, he called Micah Parsons like Michael like 4 times. It's like Michael.
Weird.
Yeah.
That's weird. It might just be his accent too. Well, but when it comes to Parsons, like you mentioned it earlier, it's number 2 in DVOA with him on the field versus number 1 versus second to last. Like, it's insane the kind of impact that player like this can make on your defense. I don't know if Patrick Surtain Jr. can make that kind of impact. I don't know who can make that kind of impact, but Carter might be one of them, which is the exciting part, because our defense already had pieces last year. And then adding someone like that could be potentially a true difference maker when it comes to success rate. It's just interesting. But on the Packers' point, it means they're likely going to be one of the better defenses, I think, in the NFL with Parsons, to go along with the good offensive infrastructure. They may be a team that's competing for the NFC every year, and that's 2 late-round, first-round picks. They're not going to find a Micah back there. You don't find Micahs in the back end of first round very often.
Not very often. TJ Watt would like a word, but
Yeah,
yes, it's not very often. And also, you had him in your building. He was right there. Like, I don't know what exactly happened with this relationship over the last 2 months between the ownership, Stephen Jones, Jerry Jones, and Micah Parsons, but I didn't envision this, right? I thought they would be able to smooth it over. And once Ricky Leaks came out and said, yo, there's a trade on the table, that was like 2 days ago. And here's the trade. It just comes down the pipeline yesterday. So credit to Ricky Leaks, credit to the Packers for being bold. I love when teams do this. Look, I would never want to part ways with first round picks. Dan and I love draft season so much, but when you're bold and you think that you're trying to strike while the iron's hot, like I appreciate that kind of gumption in a general manager, in a front office, in a team. Now with the Packers, they're going to have, I think, some free agents coming up though next year. So they're going to have to get creative with their cap as well. Hopefully they have a vision for that, but they seem to be all in for 2025 in an NFC that's kind of up for grabs. I mean, Philadelphia is not going away, right, but the Packers are in that conversation now.
Packers are in that conversation. And Kenny Clark, a player they traded to the Cowboys, Jerry Jones noted, oh, well, we are happy about this trade because we feel like we got better in our weakest area, which is obviously interior defensive line and their run defense. But Kenny Clark, 29 years old, did not play well last season for the Packers. I think he was a below average year from everything I've read. So at least for his standards. Now, he's still probably a solid player and he's a veteran, so he can help them for sure. He's a better option they had, but it's not a plus for their defense whatsoever.
What a fast, explosive defense Green Bay has now with Quay Walker, Micah Parsons. You have Rashawn Gary. You still have guys like Devonta Wyatt on the defense.
Who's the kid that looked good too? The linebacker they drafted last year.
He was somebody Edgerrin or something like
Edgerrin Cooper, maybe.
Yeah, Edgerrin Cooper. Yeah,
we kind of lie. I remember doing draft season, like we see the flashes with this kid. God. Like it's an explosive, athletic athlete.
To me, I look at the Packers defense and it's just a lot of explosiveness and a lot of violence, like at the point of contact. Like Quay Walker and Cooper, they're both players like that. And then now very good day. And then obviously Xavier McKinney.
Yeah, back there making all the interceptions. But as far as the Cowboys go, Nick, and unfortunately the Giants do have to play the Packers this year. That part sucks. But as far as the Cowboys go, they're clearly a worse team in the now, trading Parsons for Kenny Clark. The Giants play them in week 2. This is really good for the Giants because week 2, the Giants might be in a bind, just like they might be in week 1. And we'll talk about that. Yesterday, we talked about this a little bit on the podcast, but then we got an interview after we recorded with Andrew Thomas, who was sitting in the Giants locker room and basically said, like, I'm not going to go back out there until I feel ready to go back out there. And they kind of asked him, like, look, dude, I mean, Nick, we're at this point days away from the start of the regular season. Yeah. And they asked him, like, all right, well, how you feeling and what have you done? And he's like, today was the most I did. Okay, so what does that mean, Nick? It means he did individuals, he said, and some one-on-one reps, no team drills. This is getting pretty hairy, man.
Yeah, Dan, it needs a razor. I don't want to say I'd be surprised if he played, but it's starting to trend towards that direction. Like just like you said, dude, we're only less than a week and a half out, and he's making comments like this. And I feel Andrew Thomas is always, this is something I respect about Andrew Thomas. He's always been very transparent about his health when he's asked. He's not really pulling any punches. And I think he's basically telling us at this point, like, I don't know if I'm ready yet. And I'm not going to, as he said, I'm not going to put myself out there, right? Take him at his word. Is he going to be ready in a week and a half now, Dan? I don't know. Like, how many surgeries did he have this offseason? Because I know he had another screw removed more recently than I think we were privy to on the outside. So I'm looking at it. I think it's going to be James Hudson week 1 against Washington, and then we'll see week 2, take it week by week. And I want him to be fully healthy as well at this point. We've seen Andrew Thomas come out and play relatively well when he wasn't fully healthy, but he wasn't the Andrew Thomas. And I would rather the Giants get a fully healthy, fully ready Andrew Thomas by mid-season than have him be hampered all throughout the early part of the season. And that ends up taking its toll middle of the season and then towards the end of the season, especially if the Giants are a competitive football team.
Yes, I think he had a cleanup surgery to remove a screw from the ankle. Then it was the other ankle that he had the injury on. He's had multiple. Now both ankles have been banged up. The Giants have been really unlucky on the Andrew Thomas front. One of the elite players in the NFL went healthy, but has had now building up a really big injury profile. And look, the problem for me, Nick, is if he's not healthy for week 1, what is another 7 days going to do for you? You know, like it's like if you're not ready to go in week 1, I don't like. Sure, like don't play him. I'm with you on that, but I don't think it's going to get that much better in 7 days. Maybe it's 21 days. That's a type of time frame I can be like, all right, give him 21 more days and maybe it will get better, I guess. But I start to, that there's not really a magic snap your fingers and be like, if it's 9 days, he's good. It's just kind of, it could be bad for I don't know how long. And that was the question I wanted to get to next. It seems like you have an answer already, but if he can't go in week 1, Andrew Thomas, are you just trotting out James Hudson at left tackle?
I am, yeah. I'm going to go with James Hudson over Marcus Bowe at this point, and then allow James Hudson to lose that job. And then if the Giants trust Bowe, who again has been taking a lot of snaps at right tackle early in camp, and then the Giants started using him at left tackle, maybe that was somewhat of a sign like, hey, we should see if we could use Bowe if something happens to James Hudson, because who else are we going to put out there? Stone Forsythe, he might get placed on the practice squad, but as of right now, he's not. We'll get into some of this practice squad gymnastics here in a little bit. Both seemed to handle it well in preseason, but you don't want to throw him out there. This is why you signed James Hudson to $6 million a year for this exact circumstance. And it's unfortunate, but I think a lot of this is just like a pain tolerance thing and a comfortability thing for Andrew Thomas. He just doesn't feel comfortable to be out there is what he said. Right. He doesn't think he's going to be able to play at the level that he knows he can play at. So that means he's playing at like 60% in week 1. If you trot him out there early, that's only probably going to deteriorate. Labor Day weekend always sneaks up on me. It's the unofficial end of summer, and for me, that means grilling. I love one last big cookout before football and tailgating season take over. And right now, Omaha Steaks sent me a box to try, and I've been enjoying it. They hooked me up with a variety of steaks, their filet mignon burgers, gourmet jumbo franks, boneless pork chops, air-chilled boneless chicken, and even caramel apple tartlets that just melt in your mouth. Delectable, delicious, and divine. The quality is unreal. Every steak is perfectly aged. The burgers are juicy. The franks are legit deli style. And those tartlets, dangerous. And the best part is the convenience. I can pull something out of the freezer and know it's going to be great without making a run to the store. Right now, Omaha Steaks is running their Labor Day sale. 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. And our listeners get an extra $35 off with promo code BANTER at checkout. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com plus an extra $35 off with promo code BANTER. See site for details. And again, massive thanks to Omaha Steaks for sponsoring the podcast and also sending me that amazing box of meat. Thank you.
Yeah, that's bad news. I don't know how that doesn't sound like something that's just going to get better though. That's the scary part for me, Nick. Yeah, it's like, all right, I mean, like, will he ever get to 100% this year? And then he's working down from 100% throughout the year. pain tolerance. I don't know what the situation is. I'm not a doctor. Just doesn't sound good. It sucks because this is like, if you look at all the numbers and the stats, the Giants are just a shell of themselves without Andrew Thomas, or at least they have been. Now, things have changed since then. They've upgraded receiver. Some of those stats are without Neighbors, like over the years, obviously, Nick, and all those stats are with Daniel Jones at quarterback.
Yeah, and I also would say Hudson, I think, is probably better than any other tackle that we've had fill in for Andrew Thomas, not named Jermaine
I'm not sure
taking
about
over
that.
from the right side. Who else, though?
I think he could be just as bad as like the Hubbard types and all those guys we trotted out there. Pugh for his.
I think he's Pugh was an interesting one. That's the name I would say. Justin Pugh did a good job, but
Even Hubbard for me.
Hubbard was fine. I guess the Giants had to do a lot.
I think there's a chance Hudson could be the same like shit as that.
Yeah, but I think it's an upgrade over the Josh Azudus of the world. I think it's an upgrade over Evan Neal. I think it's a significant upgrade. Well, maybe not significant, but it's an upgrade enough over those types of players. Now the Pugh one is an interesting one. I don't, but again, like all it takes is like one play as an offensive tackle on like 3rd and 5, you giving up a sack, and then it's like everything falls apart. And,
like he looked good. Yeah, sorry, my bad.
No. And you're just going to look terrible but I just want him to not have those catastrophic mistakes and for him to be disciplined with his hands, which is something I'm not confident in because he got flagged so much during training camp. Like overall, I'm not optimistic about this, especially with Russell Wilson as the Giants quarterback. This is definitely something that throws cold water on the fire that is building within the Giants fan base right now. Like this, you're talking about a top 2 player on this roster who might not be available in the beginning of the season.
Maybe top
3
1,
player.
considering the depth they have at edge. Like Dex, it's either him or Dex. They're both so insanely important to this team.
And Malik, because I mean the Giants receiving.
I would say Malik is a far cry third of those.
I would agree. But if you look at, I don't know, the Giants receiving core isn't
it's great. Not, but like you can win without. I think you have a better chance to win without Neighbors than you do Thomas or Dex.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, Thomas, the numbers without Thomas are really bad. I mean, Hudson, I want to be somewhat confident in because I guess he looked good in the preseason to some extent, but that's against backups. Like, this is the real deal, and he's never looked good in a regular season game with the Browns. Tons of flags.
We didn't love his tape either.
Did not like his tape at all. Like, that's real tape against real starters. Exactly. And then it's just like, do you also then have to alter the game plan and leave these tight ends into chip and these backs and just screw up your entire offensive game plan to account for the fact that, because again, like we talked about a few episodes ago, dude, I did a film review recently. Still haven't had time to put it up. It's been a busy couple weeks with my main job, but of Thomas last season, they're just island. They just leave him on an island. Like they can't do that with James Hudson. You can't leave James Hudson on an island. I don't think, at least.
And this is where it gets interesting too, Dan.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, next. Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. If this is a long-term problem, do you entertain kicking Jermaine Illuminor over to the left side?
Or more importantly, do you keep Illuminor to keep the continuity on the right side and just say, you know what, let's throw him to the fire and put Marcus Bowe out there at left tackle? Yeah. It might get to that point. Like if Hudson is as bad as he looked on his Browns tape, they will or should give Bowe a chance. And look, it's not going to screw up Bowe's development to give him a shot out there. Give him a shot out there. If it doesn't work out, and then you could go right back to Hudson. That's not going to mess with a kid's mentality, like in my mind, at least. It's just giving him an opportunity, which is awesome for him. And he might shine in that, Marcus Bowe.
And he seems, at least, like I've talked to him he seems like a mentally strong individual.
Right.
Like that, like if it's
going to be a dude for us.
Yeah, I think so. I think so as well. And I'm just happy that the Giants ended up getting him, because what's the backup plan if the Giants didn't get him in the 5th round?
Yeah.
Stone Forsythe made the active roster, and then like
put
you're
Neal back out there and just want to kill yourself. And I'm just kidding. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's this Thomas thing sucks. Like I just never really thought he wouldn't be ready for week 1, but I think that cleanup surgery that he had to get just messed with the timeline too much and might not have him for week 1. The only silver lining to all this, Nick, is that we have to, if it's a situation where it's like I just need 14 more days. It's kind of good, or it will be less. No, I just need 18 more days to get ready. At least it's going against Washington and Dallas the first 2 weeks. Those teams do not have great edge rushers, like at all on their roster. I mean, Ezraku's a nice pick, and he could be good at some point. But like, who's Washington's number 1 edge?
Dorrance Armstrong, is he still there?
Armstrong, maybe, if he's still there. Like, I don't even know for sure if he's still there. So
Washington, I want to say they signed somebody, but it's somebody a little bit over the hill.
Fowler type.
Well, they signed Javon Kinlaw. They have Daron Payne still. Dorrance Armstrong, like we said, Dietrich
Interior
Wise.
Guys, yeah.
They signed Von Miller. That's like the funny,
Oh.
like the one that's like,
Wow.
I remembered they signed an old veteran. I'm like, I think it's Von Miller, but Von
Wow.
Miller he's got to
Thought he
be
was
like
done.
36 or 37 at this
Yeah,
point,
he's an
right?
old man, but he could still be good. I mean, against James Hudson, he could probably eat James Hudson alive, even at 36 or whatever the hell Von Miller is. That's the problem. I mean, this Hudson thing could get ugly. Let's just be clear about that. We've had these moments. It is what it is, though. We just have to hope that, Thomas is slow playing it. That's how I feel, at least. Like, I hope he's just kind of slow playing things and he'll be out there for week 1 and everything will be fine. I don't know, though. The time is running out. That's the thing. If he's not doing team drills, it's Friday, August 29th when we're recording this. We only have a little bit of time left for him to get ready. So, tricky situation for the Giants. We'll move forward. Let's take a look at some of the practice squad stuff that you were alluding to earlier. Just run through maybe the players and our thoughts on some of these guys.
Yeah, so there's some practice squad gymnastics that went on. The Giants ended up losing, and we'll get into this in a little bit, losing one of their draft picks from this year, Korie Black, who joined the Jets practice squad. So as of August 27th, 2025, the Giants had 13 players on their practice squad. The NFL allows 16 total players, but 17 if one of them is an international pathway player. And the Giants had the kicker, Jude McAtamney, on their practice squad. So the Giants are allowed 17 dudes on their practice squad. As of August 27th, they had Elijah Chapman, Trace Ford, Elijah Garcia, Timon Fox, Brian Hudson, Little Jordan Humphrey, Jake Kubis, Raheem Lane, Jude McAtamney, Dante Miller, Jordan Riley, Amir Smith-Marset, and D. Williams. And in order to make room for Bo Brady, the safety, and Rico Payton, the cornerback, the safety from the Ravens and the cornerback from the Saints, the Giants waived Gunnar Olszewski and Korie Black. And I'm imagining Gunnar is going to make his way back onto the roster eventually. And I think the Giants would have put Korie Black back on because they had that extra spot. And Rico Payton did not play in that last preseason game because he was waived with an injury designation. So something's wrong with Rico Payton. I don't believe that's been disclosed. I couldn't find any information on that. And we can go through Rico Payton, a little thing on him a little bit later. I have a cut up that I can play when I shut the hell up. And I think he's a solid overall addition, but he's dealing with some injury. But while that was happening, when the Giants were attempting to sneak Korie Black back onto their practice squad and possibly elevate him, the Jets came in and offered him a spot on their practice squad, and he accepted it. So he went to the New York Jets. That's where he is right now. He's not on the 53-man roster. So imagine the Giants could still go and pluck him off, but I don't know if there's bad blood or what exactly happened. And I can only speak anecdotally about Korie Black from what I saw on training camp. It was weird. He wasn't really getting a lot of reps with the defense, and it was only with the third team. There were some practices where he was dressed, but he wasn't practicing with the team, and he was just off on the side with the special teamers. And I never really got a sense that like he was in the running to even earn a roster spot, despite the fact that he was this 7th round pick by the Giants. Because remember, like you're looking at like Cordell Flott and Deontay Banks dealt with injuries all throughout training camp. And then the Giants were using like Nick Jones and D. Williams and TJ Moore and all these players. And I'm like, why isn't Korie Black getting in there? Is it an injury? And then it's like, well, Dable didn't say he was injured before practice, so he's dressed. Like, what exactly? There was something weird I felt going on with Korie Black. And I got to imagine at this point, it's like, oh, you chose the Jets practice squad over ours after being in training. That's probably does not send the best message. So I don't know if the Giants are going to be done with him or if they'll put him back on the 53-man roster if they put Rico Payton onto the IR, if that's where his destination is. So roster gymnastics gone wrong. I don't exactly know what happened, but I think this is worth talking about. And then we can get into the 3 other guys the Giants just added to bring the number 13 up to 16, leaving the 1 spot. But before that, what are your thoughts on Korie Black?
Yeah, it just seems like a player that fell out of favor with the coaching staff. Obviously, we haven't seen a lot of this throughout the Giants, our tenure covering the team, as far as draft picks being cut or moving to another team's practice squad. But the Giants are deeper than they've been roster-wise at any point during this tenure. So I kind of felt like there might be a few guys like this that fall out of favor or just, they decide they can move on from earlier. And I don't know if that's the decision, if the Giants necessarily decided that. I don't think this decision was made for them. But I'm not losing sleep over it personally.
No, neither am I. But again, as of right now, if the Giants put Rico Payton back on to the IR, they'll have 2 spots open. Right now, there is 1 spot open because those 3 spots were taken up by a linebacker, Swaze Bozeman, a 26-year-old who the Giants just claimed off the Chicago Bears. Not claimed, I shouldn't say. Signed to their practice squad, not claimed. He spent 2024 with the Chiefs. He's a 26-year-old linebacker, 6'1", 224, ran like a 4.55 the Chiefs said, at least there were people on the beat with the Chiefs that said the reason why he stuck to the practice squad last year with Kansas City was because of his athletic testing. So he's more of an athletic linebacker, despite the fact that he's a little bit undersized, but he jumped 36 in the vert and a 10-11 broad. It's pretty impressive stuff. Small school kid from Southern Missouri or Southern Mississippi, I believe. The Giants also signed Kadir Ishmael, a 25-year-old tight end who is like 6'7", 230 pounds. He was the starting quarterback at Villanova and then transferred to Samford in his final season as a graduate student. He played wide receiver as well. So he's new to the tight end position. Kind of reminds me of that Canadian kid. What was his name that the Giants signed back in like 2020? It was a big, tall Ryson John, I think his name was. Was that his name? Ryson John?
Not sure.
He was a big, tall Canadian tight end that they had on their practice squad. And I haven't watched any tape, so I'm only going off the fact that this is somebody who's new to the position and who is absolutely massive, like a seam stretcher, ran a 4.7, that type of player, but also a former quarterback. And then the Giants also signed safety Patrick McMorris to their practice squad, a 23-year-old former 6th-round pick by the Miami Dolphins out of Cal, previously San Diego State, two-time first-team All-Mountain West, was actually at the scouting combine back in 2024. Was active for a game last year. He made a tackle on, I think, a fake punt it was against the Houston Texans. So 3 guys, if you hear their names called up at any time this year, these are the 3. You can look them up. I don't know if any of them are going to be destined for the 53 at any point, but the Giants obviously have some interest in them to some degree at least.
Yeah, it was certainly a possibility. We'll see how that goes with the Giants practice squad as we work through the season. Obviously, these are like the, let's say, break glass in case of emergency players for the most part. All right, let's wrap up the show with some mailbag questions like we promised. I want to get to some stuff we just haven't gotten to over the years. I think you had one we can start with, but I have a bunch of good ones too if you want to get that up.
Yeah, I got to get that up. I think I texted it to you if I'm not mistaken.
Okay,
right?
I actually have it via text. Let's see. So this is from, let me open this picture up, from Dan Simone. Dan Simone says, with all the hype on Dart this preseason, we are praising him for his arm angles, his pocket presence, escapability, going through all of the reads and getting the ball on time with good placement and anticipation. He was touted as the 3rd, maybe 4th quarterback in this draft class by draft experts, and not having high stock, maybe 2nd rounder, which you've alluded to in your draft analysis. Long story short, because I value your opinion, what was missed in the film analysis to not place him as a consensus 1-2 quarterback in this class? Were all the traits above mentioned in that film? What made the league not look at Dart as a first-round prospect? Obviously, Dable saw this from a mile away. Thank you guys for listening to the beginning. Thank you, Dan. All right, What are your thoughts on that, Nick?
Yeah, this is something that I've thought a decent amount about, and I think a lot of the appeal to Jackson Dart, it's something that could have been perceived and gleaned when interacting with Jackson Dart and who he is as a person. And we don't have that opportunity. Now, with his film specifically, it was a lot of just first read targets, and there wasn't that many full field progressions. Now, Dan and I actually brought up the plays, if you want to go back and watch, where there were full field progressions. We were like, well, there were 3 level concepts that he was hitting. And those are professional type of plays that you see run in the NFL all the time. Mm-hmm. But it was few and far between when it came to Lane Kiffin's offense. So it really was just how Lane Kiffin spread everybody out. And that led to these advantageous boxes where Ole Miss would just run basically RPOs and they could just hand the football off because it was a light box. And then when the defense started to condense, Jackson Dart did a good job getting the football out of his hands, but the RPO is not as effective in the NFL because the space is so much restricted and because those athletes are so much more athletic. And I think it was just a little bit difficult to discern exactly how his skill set would translate in a more professional offense because there was only little tape to really go off of, even though it wasn't terrible tape, because we believed in his arm talent. We believed in his toughness and his athletic ability. A lot of it was mental questions, and a lot of those mental questions can be answered when you get somebody in front of a chalkboard, and we don't really have that opportunity. So I think that's where Dan and I probably were a little bit lower than we would have been right now. We still had a 2nd round grade on Jackson Dart, so it's not like we were super low on Jackson Dart. We just didn't really exactly know how his specific skill set from a mental pre to post snap standpoint would translate to the NFL. And we still don't really know that fully because we haven't seen him against real defenses. I think we can say, hey, it lends to at least suggest that he's somebody who can do it based off of him going up against these vanilla defenses. But when you're starting to roll safeties and bring blitzes from a bunch of different ways, and he has to set protections and know where that's coming from, that's yet to be seen. I remain optimistic based off what I've seen that he will be able to handle that, but I can't say with full certainty that that's going to be the case either. Dan, what are your thoughts?
That was an excellent answer. And I think it detailed a lot of how I feel about it. The first and most important thing is, I think if you're looking at draft analysts and how they're projecting these quarterbacks and what the consensus ranking is, as you alluded to in this question, none of that's really coming from the mental side. Like Nick and I evaluate the tape. We can try to evaluate the processing of these quarterbacks, but we're not in the quarterback room. We're not in the coach's room. So all we can evaluate that on is what we think the progression was, which we don't really know, to be quite frank. And we try our best to understand and discern it. And we can see things, though. It's not just like we're blind to it, Nick and I. We can see how long is this guy hanging on his first read? Is this guy staring down players? Is he good in the pocket? Does he have a good feel for pressure? How's the ball play? And then it's the physical tools. So that's what they're going off of mostly, in my mind, at least, the physical tools projection, the draft nicks. And in addition to that, I'd say the physical tools projection, what they've done from a production standpoint is probably part of the process there. And a projection, I guess, of how you think this person will process going forward, which I think is the most open-ended. As far as the physical tools go, I don't think Jackson Dart had top 10 physical tools or like number 1, number 2 quarterback in this class. Honestly, I don't really think any of these quarterbacks in this class had elite physical tools. The closest to me was Cam Ward, but that I wouldn't even never consider it elite. I would consider it on the next level. Elite to me is the Josh Allen and Justin Herbert type physical tools. Yeah. But, for example, like we both had second round grades on Daniel Jones and Jackson Dart, Nick and I, but I had a higher grade on Dart than Jones. With that said, the reason we projected a high enough grade for Jones to be second round was because of the physical tools. 6'5", good mover, and I wouldn't say a better arm than Dart because I liked Dart's talent better. Sorry, Dart's arm talent better. That was a lot to get out there, because I think he can put the ball up and down.
There's also a 6-year difference in evaluation and how much we've evolved. Like when we evaluated Daniel, I could speak for me. When I evaluated Daniel Jones, I was pretty new into the evaluation game. When I evaluated Jackson Dart, there's some 6 more years into this thing.
Yeah, we've seen more. There's more examples. There's a bigger sample size. We've seen what works more and what doesn't in today's NFL. But different type of arm talent. Dart, as you've seen, can throw from all the arm angles, but Jones had a bigger arm, I thought, and just generally speaking, had more tools physical wise. So that boosts him a little bit. But in the same time with Dart, you're looking at a player who doesn't have great speed, I don't think, but is a good runner. Doesn't have great size, but is fine size-wise. Doesn't have a huge arm, but is fine arm talent-wise, because we think he can change arm slots and do things like that. That's, to me, is never going to be someone that consensus draft nicks think is like a number 1 overall or like a top quarterback. So I think part of that went into the process, along with what Nick said. At Ole Miss, it's very difficult to project what is going to happen. With all that said, the one thing I did want to point to, Nick, is I don't think Dable saw this from a mile away, or like we're out of the water here and everything's solved. Because if you look at Dart's tape, one of our biggest concerns, at least mine was, and I think Nick is the same here, was he had meltdown moments at Ole Miss. And against Florida in the second half, he melted down in that game. And he had other meltdown games where when pressure got to him, he didn't have all the solutions or all the answers. I think that's really important, because in the preseason, he didn't have a lot of pressure. He didn't deal with a lot of pressure. He dealt with it on a few plays and did a good job with it, but it wasn't constant. And like Nick said, there's no scheming against him in the preseason. They're not rotating safeties down. They're not doing tricky things. They're not sending pass rushers from different angles. All that happens in the regular season. They're going to try to overwhelm him at the line of scrimmage when he finally does play. So I don't think we're out of the water yet. I don't think he's a success pick yet. I don't think we're solved yet. We need to see how he does against real NFL defenses, because that's what people were concerned with, right? People were like Lane Kiffin's offense, you didn't really have to do anything. You just had to go to you're able to get the ball out fast. And that is what Dable tried to do for him in the preseason. Let me be clear. Dable will continue to try to do this for him. He's a good coach, but that doesn't always work in the regular season. Even if you want to do that for your quarterback, you want to make things easy. You want to get it so the read is open. I mean, it does for some, right? Like Kyle Shanahan, Kevin O'Connell, they just have an amazing way of finding a way to get their first reads open for based on scheme, but it doesn't always happen. So I think it's clear that we need to just pump the brakes a little bit on this.
And I think it was smart and wise that you brought up the Florida game, because that was a rough one towards the end of the game. Before that, it was sensational.
It was amazing.
It was sensational. But it was a tough end of the game. And another thing is, like, I don't right now have access to all the NCAA. Like I'm on the black market of the NCAA tape game right now. Like I don't have the amount of tape that some of these NFL teams have, unfortunately. So if anybody has tape access, holler at your boy, please. What's our next question? That was a good question, by the way, Dan. So thank you.
That's
so
a great
much,
question.
buddy.
And yeah, and I think, look, he could end up being the best quarterback in this class easily, in my opinion, based on not the physical tools, just based on some of the mental stuff that Nick alluded to that we wouldn't know because we don't get to put them in front of a whiteboard. And also, I think it's not even that. I think whiteboard is one thing, right? Like Daniel Jones crushes in front of a whiteboard. It's actually when the bullets are flying, how do you react? And so far, he's reacted well. Just he hasn't seen a lot yet. Those are pretty vanilla defensive schemes in the preseason. Is what it is, though. Okay, Chewy Riff asks a fun one that I wanted to get your take on. He says, do you think, and this is to allude to a little bit of what Mike McDonald said will happen for Sam Darnold and Jalen Milroe this season. Chewy Riff says, do you think that Dable will have special packages for Dart within the weekly game plan? Most likely an RPO or something like that, maybe 1 to 2 plays per game. Interesting.
I think so. Yes. I think there will be something like that. And I think Jackson Dart will be aware of it. I don't think they're just going to be like, hey, Jackson, get in there. Like they're going to have packages.
That was for the preseason.
Yeah. That was a preseason thing just to see how the kid handled it. But I have to imagine maybe some in the red zone, some depending on if the defense is, if the Giants offense, not necessarily stagnating, but you could tell that the defense is set against like the Russell Wilson style offense. I think the Giants will throw a curveball and maybe get Jackson in there. But again, like that's tough to handle. And that's something that Russell has to be a professional and a good teammate to be taken off the field for this rookie as a team captain and as somebody who has a Super Bowl and who is as illustrious as Russell Wilson. So that's from a personality standpoint, that's something for the coaching staff to handle. But I can envision that.
That's a good point. I think what you said, Nick, is really the most interesting part of it. If you have a weekly game plan where teams have a week to prepare for the Giants and they're doing everything they can to beat what Russell Wilson offers as a quarterback and what the Giants have put on tape, you bring in Jackson Dart. We already saw it this preseason. The offense was entirely different when Dart was in versus when Russell was in. And that's going to continue to be the same. Like you put Dart in, now you can run spread, you can run empty, you can run RPO, you can run up tempo more often. It is a wrench in the defensive coordinator's game plan. It's actually really smart of the Giants to consider giving Dart a series a game. And I know that's crazy. No one does this in the NFL. Well, I think actually did the Steelers do this a little bit last year? Some teams have like rarely done this in the NFL. It seems like you can't do it. Like, as it kind of, to me, Nick, goes back to the thing I hate, which is like all throughout the Jones tenure, like you can't bring in anyone because it's a lack of confidence to your quarterback, your young quarterback. You can't bring in anyone. You like the finger getting in this. You can't bring anybody. No, you can bring them in. If they're actually the real deal, they'll respond well to competition. They're not going to be like, oh, no, he brought in a good backup. Like, no, I hate that. No, I hate that nonsense. So like
Carson Wentz type stuff right there, man.
Yeah, it's just cringe to me. Like a good quarterback's not going to be like, I can't do it anymore. I give up on this team and I quit because they actually brought in competition. No, he'll get better. And I think it's the same regard with giving a series to Dart, because Russell Wilson, if he's the leader he's supposed to be and the team captain he was named to be by the teammates, Nick, because they voted on it, he's going to be okay to give a series up a game to Dart if he thinks that can help them win football games. And that might be the case, dude. If you bring in Dart for a series and let him run up-tempo, if you're running grindy, no up-tempo the whole game with Russ and not getting much, it might be the spark they need to get a good drive and potentially score.
I agree, man. I
love
agree.
that.
Now, if Jackson Dart gets in there, though, Dan, and he just leads it down, and
that's a problem. True.
Well, and the defense, from a media standpoint, but the thing that we have to understand, and again, like I'm going to be excited about it too, and it really depends on what Russell Wilson is doing with the Giants' offense at that time.
Right.
But if the defense has prepared for Russell Wilson, say it's like week 4, week 5. And then the Giants just throw this curveball, put Jackson Dart in there, and the Giants drive down the football field. The defense wasn't ready because they didn't have their adjustments in place. Like that's not going to happen all of the time. It's definitely something positive that we should get excited about. But it's not like, hey, 2 weeks later, if Jackson Dart's the starter for those 2 weeks, the other defensive coordinator is gonna be like, oh, we don't know how to freaking game plan for Jackson Dart. Like they're gonna have a plan ready for that kid.
It's a good idea from game to game, but I think you're right. Long term, it doesn't tell us anything, but it is interesting. And I if I'm the coach, I'd probably just do this, dude. I think I would just do this. I think I would have a package for Dart every single game to mix things up, to keep the defensive coordinator off guard, and to just ultimately take advantage of a team that's probably scheming to defend a certain quarterback in Russell Wilson that has a completely different style than my other quarterback, Jackson Dart. Honestly, a different style than Jameis, too. If you want to throw Jameis in and just start going bombs away on this thing and ripping intermediates and ripping deep shots and posts,
I mean, don't do that, but I would love that just because I love Jameis.
Just have Jameis run a series. Like, I don't hate these ideas. Jameis can play at the NFL level. We saw it last year. He beat the Ravens in his first start last year with like nothing around him at quarter with the Browns there. Let's go to the next one. Eric the Fulcrum Music says, can you go over free agents still available at wide receiver, offensive line, and elsewhere? Do you think the Giants should pursue any of them?
Yeah, I would have to Google that and see exactly. I mean, at this point, a lot of people
Definitely no O-line.
Yeah, a lot of people have been Stone Forsythe. There you go. If the Giants want to bring him back, because right now everybody's been stashed on practice squads. So
but even
the available free agents, you have guys like Amari Cooper who just got signed, right? Yeah. So if I pull up a wide receiver, we could do this real quick. And these guys,
Beckham and Gabe Davis, like those are the guys.
Gabe Davis would be one. Tyler Boyd would be another, and we're talking about players like that. Yeah, OBJ. Dude, Jordan Matthews is still in the league. You gotta be kidding me. I haven't seen Jordan Matthews in so long. That's crazy.
Is he still playing tight end?
This website has him listed as but again,
look, let's answer this question in another way, Eric. There's not a single offensive lineman that can be signed right now that's going to have any value to the Giants. I'm just going to be frank about the situation.
Sam Mustipher's
line is weak as it is. Sam Mustipher, I forgot. I didn't know Sam Mustipher was available. He could just bring him in for like you should just sign Sam Mustipher to the practice squad just to bring everybody's. Damn it, I don't know how to say this the right way.
You're going to say something mean, so let's just not.
We'll pass on that one. But we can just run that Sam Mustipher tape against Dexter Lawrence from a few years ago. But look, there's no offensive linemen that are going to be even remotely playable that are available right now. Their offensive line is weak depth-wise across the NFL as is. As far as receiver goes, there are vets that could be interesting, like a Beckham type, but this is not the route I want the Giants to go. Dave says, I know we as Giants fans, Dave has the best avatar that you can't see, Nick. It is Tim Robinson in the hot dog costume. You ever seen that skit?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay. Do you like that one?
So I'll say this. I don't remember the skit too entirely. I'll say this. I have crapped on what is it called again? The show?
I Think You Should Leave.
I Think You Should Leave. I've never watched it. I just seen a lot of clips of it, and I still find some of them obnoxious, but there have been a few that are just drop dead freaking hilarious, dude.
Which ones have you loved?
Oh, the one where a bunch of guys are picking on him at work, and they said like, "Yeah, your mom" or whatever, and he calls his dad.
Oh yeah, that was amazing.
It's such that is gold. That is gold. I love that one. The zip line one that we've talked about in the past, and I've probably only seen like 2 or 3 other ones. It's just those ones are like very obnoxious, and like I can see where the humor is, I guess, but I still find them to be just a little bit too obnoxious. But maybe it's something I'll have to rethink and give a chance to, because that one killed me. The one where he calls his dad, he's like, "Yes, Sergeant. Yes, Sergeant.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Oh, sir. Yes, sir. It is.
Yeah.
Say it. Like I was just like, that's so funny, dude.
Yeah, it's a hit or miss show. So like a lot of the skits I don't laugh at all. I don't think they're funny at all. But then the ones that hit so hard that like it's worth it. You have to watch Santa's Early Present. Santa, I don't know what the skit is called. Just type in like Santa brought it early or Santa's Present. That one's my all-time favorite. And it's not even with Tim in it. A few others I put out there. Dylan's Burger, Dangerous Nights. I love those. Or I don't know if that's how the skit is called, but that's one of them. But yeah, hit or miss show. But yeah, I knew you had maybe seen that one, so I wanted to put that out. But anyway, he says, I know we as Giants fans are often critical of ownership, but is it fair to say that we're lucky in the grand scheme of things? I think this is probably a follow-up to what Jerry Jones did yesterday. Said our owner isn't afraid to spend money, like the Bengals, for example, and he recently has kept out of major personnel decisions. Where would you rank our ownership league-wide?
I mean, I don't really know those other owners, so it's difficult for me to give you an honest answer. But Dan and I have been pretty transparent on this podcast that I think the Giants are in a good position with John Mara. Same. I do. Like there are times where, look, it's been conjecture. We don't know if he's meddled or gotten maybe too involved, but overall, he's willing to spend money. Like, could you imagine being a fan of like the Bengals or the Chargers or teams like that, dude? Like, no, absolutely, that would be absolutely terrible, right? So, overall, I think he's fine as an owner from what I can collect from John Mara.
Yeah, I've always thought he was better than Giants fans assumed he was, and there's a lot of conjecture anyway in what his role has been in some of the decisions they blamed him for. Though I do think he played a big role in Jones being here for 6 years, which was not good. But Other than that, I think he's about league average, I'd say. He's not afraid to spend. The facilities are pretty nice. People say they like being here, and the Giants take care of them from, every standpoint, food, rehab, all that stuff, which I think is good from a player standpoint to keep that. People like being in the building. So I think overall league average, maybe even higher. Okay. Chris Gerard says, do you think Mike Kafka calling plays again means our red zone offense will go back to or even exceed the 2022 levels of efficiency?
Well, it's going to be a different red zone package, different red zone approach because Daniel Jones is in here. So now you have Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson he's more apt to target in the end zone, which Daniel Jones really didn't do all that often, right? So I think you might see more concepts that can lead to some success from that standpoint. But yes, overall, I think this could be a more creative. I don't know if creative is the right word because I don't really want to crap on Dable too hard because Dable inherited an offense where the entire league knew what Daniel Jones was going to do within this offense in the red zone, whereas Mike Kafka had 2022 where no one really knew what Brian Dable's offense was going to do with Daniel Jones. And I felt like they did an excellent job using Daniel Jones's legs and using those RPOs and creating 2v1s against zone defenses in the red zone. Now, right now, I'm excited that Kafka is back calling plays. I just think that's the way it should be. Your head coach should be your head coach. Your offensive coordinator should call the plays and be in control of the offense. And I trust Mike Kafka's offensive mind. But I don't know if it has to come as this is a knock on Dable because the main ingredient to the change is the quarterback position being different and Daniel Jones not being here. That's not a slight on Daniel Jones, but it's just to say that the approach in the red zone is going to be obviously different with Russell Wilson or Jackson Dart.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer, Nick. I think my answer would be for Chris would be I have a lot of concerns when it comes to Russell Wilson as a starting quarterback in the NFL right now. But among the fewest of those concerns is in the red zone. I actually, just from what I've seen in camp and what he's done in his career, I think his skill set fits really well for deep passing and for red zone passing. I think he's very efficient in the red zone. The ball placement is good. Ball gets out fast. He can throw more velocity in the red zone. That's where, as we alluded to when we had Emory Hunt on, like he's lost a lot of his RPMs. Like his velocity has gone down. He's an older quarterback. He's 36. But in the red zone, it doesn't affect him as much because it's shorter throws. And I think he does a great job with not just the ball placement there, but the velocity and the zip on the ball. So early throws, anticipation, zip, accuracy. I think we'll see a lot more success passing in the red zone, in addition to all the things you mentioned from a schematic standpoint, advantage-wise, that Kafka gives us. I think we're going to get back to being a top 13, top 12 red zone efficiency offense. I don't think overall our offense will break top 20, but I think that area and deep passing will potentially also end up top 15.
And Russ is going to be the type of quarterback who sees, okay, I see that safety cheating towards Malik's size. Are they doubling Malik? All right. So they are. Snap, got the football. They're doubling him. Got Theo up the seam with leverage against this guy and quick process, ball out of his hands, touchdown. Something like that. Like I trust Russell Wilson to be able to look at the defense pre to post and make that decision right as he gets the football. If other teams want to double team Malik Neighbors in the red zone. And if they don't, then I can also see Russell Wilson trusting Malik Neighbors to make a play on the football in the one-on-one matchup.
I think we'll see a lot more receiving touchdowns for our receivers than we're used to. Slayton, Theo, players that we just don't know we're not typically used to getting touchdowns, end the season with 4, 5, 6. If Russell Wilson plays all 17 games, I predict we 100% will be throwing for more passing touchdowns as a team than we've thrown for since, I believe, 2015. Maybe 2017. I'm not sure what Geno did when he was in, if he threw a lot of touchdowns, but I think we'll top the 2019 number, which is our previous high from Jones, 24. And since that, we just haven't thrown any touchdowns at all. We've been disgustingly low every single season. So I think we'll probably top 2019. I think we'll definitely top 24 touchdown passes if Russell plays all games.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
We have all right. Yeah, we have a couple more.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's go to Sean Sullivan, who says, what matchups, both on offense and defense, do you think the Giants can take advantage of versus Washington in week 1?
What matchups from all? I mean, just the offensive line. I mean, their offensive line against our defensive line, so the Giants' defensive line. Yep. But again, Cliff Kingsbury is just going to horizontally try to spread everything out, bubble screens to Deebo Samuel. It's going to be a lot of those quick hitters that we saw in week 2 against Washington last year. So the Giants need to rally and tackle and force those 3rd and longs. That would be my main point that I want to identify. And then there's also Malik Neighbors against whatever cornerback the Washington decides to put up against him. And they actually have some cornerbacks that drafted a kid who's pretty solid, but I still think Malik Neighbors can dominate that.
Yeah, and
And
they play
also
up.
like Bobby Wagner against like Theo Johnson in the middle of the field.
Good point. I like that take. And I think that you outlined all the ones that I have pinpointed, but I just remember last year watching that first Washington Commanders game tape when we were on the road in those white uniforms, tons of man coverage against Malik Neighbors, which is a disaster for defenses. The Giants found a way to destroy that multiple times with just those shallow crosses that got so much junk in the middle of the field that Neighbors just had freedom. And then that was with Jones throwing the football. I mean, obviously we know, no offense to him or whatever your opinion is, he's not throwing with good ball placement, timing, or velocity on those throws. So Neighbors slowed down by a few of those. Neighbors will have full opportunity, full access to hopefully catch those and run for a lot of yards. All right, let's see. Next one is from Joe Smith. He says, excluding the quarterback position, pretending it's not part of the equation, do the Giants now have the second best roster in the division?
I think there is a conversation for that. Yeah. If you exclude the quarterback position, it's Eagles number one, easy. But I don't even know. Like, who would you say? I think it might go Giants, Washington, Dallas. Is that what it would be?
For me, it would be Giants, Dallas, Washington. I think Washington's roster is insanely overrated and not very good. I just think Jaden's that good, or was that good last year, at least, to help them win football games. As far as Dallas goes, they still have CeeDee Lamb on that roster. They still have, I guess,
I
love
think their
George
offensive
Pickens.
line is like solid. I think
They
their
still have
offensive
a solid offensive line.
Yeah.
They've been drafting and just replenishing it. Washington has no offensive line, and they've just kind of, lived on the back of Cliff Kingsbury's scheme and Jaden negating pass rush, pass blocking importance. So again, that's quarterback and that scheme. So players wise, I think the Giants are clearly the second best roster on personnel wise in this division. To me, it's not really even. I don't know if it's even close.
That's got to be. I mean, look, this is Joe Shane's team. I remember a few years ago talking. Like,
we've had a lot of top picks, though, dude. We've had it's just because you're supposed to, like,
we got a ton of top.
We've lost our way to Neighbors and Carter, and that's most the reason I think we're the second best roster.
Yeah. I mean, look, Dave Gettleman's Dave Gettleman. He made a ton of bad decisions, but when Andrew Thomas is healthy, you have Andrew Thomas. When you have Dexter Lawrence, who is the top 17 player in the NFL, according to the players. And he was drafted, I think, 17th overall back in 2019. Now there were a bunch of misses too. If you'd imagine if both of those general managers, Joe Shane and Dave Gettleman, actually hit on a lot of their first round picks,
millions of top picks.
I know, like Evan Neal's a miss, DeAndre Baker's a miss, Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones. Barkley's not on the team anymore. That goes on and on. But regardless, all the losing has brought us a lot of opportunities. And kudos to Shane, because I think in both spots, and I know one of them is controversial, but in both spots, he made the right decision to get these all-pro, unique blue-chip talents in Malik Neighbors and Abdul Carter. Obviously, this year it was the right decision not to go Shedeur Sanders over Carter at that pick. That's obvious. And it's obvious not to go Dart either, because they were able to get Dart later, which they would never have been able to do with Carter. Year before, I'd still personally prefer Neighbors to Penix, Nix, all those guys, McCarthy. I know that one's a little bit more controversial, but that's what I'm saying. I'd much rather be in the position we're in now with Neighbors and Dart than Penix, Nix, and whatever we would have got for that Dart pick and all the picks we traded to get there. But that's just me. So yeah, I think the Giants have the second best roster in the division outside of quarterback if we're excluding it. Mike says, Dan and Nick, I'm starting to believe.
Starting to believe, baby. Love to hear it. Yeah. Let's see it translate on the football field. I'm not saying that to be a negative Nancy or anything like that, because I too I'm very excited, but I just know how this excitement can kind of delve into delusion, and then the next thing you know, it's like, oh, there's Bill Krosky Merritt rushing for 50 yards. Right. So I just want to see it first.
It might get chewed up on the ground week one, so let's not put the cart before the horse, as they say. But I am definitely more excited, Mark and Mike, than I've ever been for this team during this tenure. No, I probably had false delusions about the 2023 season, stupidly. Unfortunately. Okay. Darth Surly says, do you worry about the interior defensive line's ability to stop the run without Dex on the field? Is DJ Davidson really better than anyone that was waived?
I do worry about it. I don't know if DJ Davidson's better than anybody that was waived. I would say his training camp, I think the tail end of his training camp and those last two preseason games were solid. It was solid tape. He's been in the building for a while. He's a big body. I never really trust anytime he's out there against double teams, but I didn't really see a lot of defensive tackles that were waived that I was clamoring to get either. So I'm okay with it. It's still something I would like to be upgraded eventually.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. All right. It's not something I think they could have upgraded or they would have. As far as waivers go, I think that would have been a priority. All right, Green Machine 99 ask if you could add 2 non-quarterbacks, 1 offense, 1 defense to the current Giants roster construction, who would it be?
Oh, Patrick Surtain.
I have a different answer for that.
Okay.
I think I'm going Chris Jones.
Chris Jones, okay.
I'm not keeping in mind age, just like for this
Yeah. So that's interesting. I think I would still go Patrick Surtain, but a big defensive tackle that's in the conversation. And then offensively, I might just go with like Jamar Chase and just Jamar Chase, Malik Neighbors, this bad boy. But then you look at the Andrew Thomas situation, you're like, ooh, would I go with a left tackle? Part of me thinks I would go with a wide receiver and just bolster this receiving core.
It's a really interesting
debate
on both fronts. I think for the defense, I just have more faith that a D tackle can make, interior defensive lineman, I should say, can make more of an impact than a corner in general, just because they're on the line of scrimmage. And I've kind of altered my thinking on that a lot over time. But Surtain would be fun to just have on an island, and I think you could do that. So I think that's a valid argument. On offense, it gets very interesting because it's like Chase or,
Chase or Penei Sewell. Huh.
Right. Put Penei Sewell, and now you can do so many things in your run game and your screen game. I ultimately like offensive line more than receiver, importance factor. And I don't think Russell Wilson really could take advantage of having elite receivers like Neighbors and Chase. Like, I just don't love him. But Dart maybe could, right? So, and that's the future of this thing. I think I might go like a Penei Sewell. For the right now, it would have to be a right tackle because I think Thomas will play. Creed Humphrey would be fun to put on this team, but that's a little absurd to put a center. Like that doesn't make sense. I think maybe Chase is the play.
All right.
Let's see if there are any more. There might be one more.
And I got something to close the show out on too.
I think that's it for now. We can go to the show closer.
A response to Dan Schneier from the one and only John Adams, which he's not the one and only.
We shouted out John last show.
Yeah. So again, last show we shouted out John Adams, and we talked a little bit about our dynasty league. John Adams is my best friend from childhood. We joined the Marines together and everything, and he's also buddies with Dan. And John said, because we talked about John, how he fleeced your league mates and got Kyron Williams for Treylon Burks. And then you came back and said, well, I won in the other dynasty league we're in, which you did with the Hollywood Brown. But John also said he got a first-round pick, or he gave a first-round pick to you for Tony Pollard in the league where he got Kyron Williams, and that helped him win the league last. Yeah. And I was like, I forgot all about that trade. And John looks like he's the Green Bay Packers. That's who John Adams is. He's the Green Bay Packers. He is willing to wheel and deal. He'll deal his first round picks and sit out that first round, which no one likes to do as a dynasty manager.
True.
But you got to make those tough decisions when you want to win championships. And guess what John has? He has freaking championships. So congratulations, John Adams.
Yeah, John's done a great job in that league. Obviously, I think he has one championship and his team set up to potentially win another one. There's a lot of super teams in that one. I'm not one of them, unfortunately. I'm not sure if you are.
No, I made the playoffs every year.
Okay, playoffs, but there's like super teams now in that league. Scott and John.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a super team
because there's just like more tanking. Like that league has a very extreme teams. Like people are either tanking or going for it.
I was just about to say that. That's the reason why. And I've been a little bit more conservative, I think, because again, I feel like a lot of your friends, they throw out some trades where I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Like that.
No, some of them are just that Steve Hall just throws out the dumb, like just
dumb trades. Like, yeah. And like I have core pieces like Josh Allen and a super flex, and
you're
not
moving.
No, of course not. I'm not moving guys like that. And then I've also had first round picks like Garrett Wilson that look like a grand slam, and then everything is just freaking like fell around him, and I'm like, fuck, So I like my team, but I'm not a super team, I would say.
Dynasty is a fun game. All right. Thank you to everybody tuning into this bonus episode of Big Blue Banter. Have a great rest of your weekend. We'll be back next week with a lot of fun content to get us pumped and excited for the season opener against the Washington Commanders. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon.